Hey everybody, it's Allie, and in today's video I just want to give you a quick overview before we dive into the content. What I'm doing here is I am taking you along with me as I fill in some pockets in my 6x8 album for 2023. This year I'm taking kind of a relaxed approach to documenting. I'm doing projects for the story kit each month, so that is based on some specific theme. So in this video, you'll see some of the projects that I already did for the Make Story Kit. I don't share the process videos for those. Those are all in the classroom. But in addition to the 3 or 4 videos or 3 or 4 projects that I made with the Make Story Kit, I'm also really feeling the desire to print out some of my photos and my journaling in a really simple way. So the simple way that I am doing that is by just keeping the focus on 3x4 and 4x6 photos and adding them into pockets, and you're going to see what this looks like. I'm not doing this like on a weekly basis. I guess you could say it's kind of monthly documenting, but what I've done this month is I have printed out photos kind of along the way as I've gone along. Some of them have been shared to Instagram, where I'm simply copying and pasting the text or the story that I shared on Instagram, printing that onto a digital Stories by the Month journaling card, and then slipping it in the pocket. Doing the same a little bit with some 4x6 sized ones, and sometimes grabbing a physical card that I already have from the Stories by the Month kit or the story kit and just jotting down my journaling. There's not a lot of other embellishing happening, and this is really what's working for me right now. I've got a lot of other creative projects going on. I'm working on new class content. I'm doing some art journaling. I've got stuff going on in the garden. So for the season of life that I am in right now, having a simplified approach to the things that I'm putting in the pockets on a regular, month-to-month basis feels really good, especially when I know that I'm going to be doing Week in the Life coming up. I just did Day in the Life. We've got new travel products coming up later this year. And then, of course, I'll be doing December Daily as well. I think considering all of those things, I wanted to have just a really simple way to archive some of these stories in a 6x8 album. So the video that you're going to see here is just me doing some of those tasks. I also did save a portion of a video where I am taking one of the digital journaling cards and showing you how I adapt that to work for the stories that I want to tell in this style of memory keeping. So what I want you to know as we dive into this is I really want to encourage you to embrace the season that you are in. I've been documenting for 20 plus years now, and I've done a wide variety of different things, memory keeping in different ways, but always showing up in one way or another. And this is how I am having fun showing up right now. All right, let's set the stage for what you are seeing right here. What you are seeing is a 6x8 album with page protectors and some things outside of the page protector. So I'm just kind of housing everything in one album. What you can also see here is that I have gone through and looked in my photo archives and printed out a bunch of 3x4 photos and some 3x4 journaling cards. So taking the digital Stories by the Month and adding text onto those cards. And you'll see a little tutorial here in just a minute about how I'm adapting some that are the 4x6 size to the 3x4 size. I'm also adding in a couple full page photos, a couple that go along with some of the stories that I am telling. But again, I'm not doing a lot of embellishing, so I'm just focusing on the words and photos here in this part and filling in some pockets with words and thoughts related to the different activities and things that have been happening around here in the month of March. I just flipped by a couple of my Make Story Kit projects, and then I am pulling out some 4 pocket page protectors to use for the additional photos that I want to simply slip inside the pockets. Let's take a look at how I adjusted one of those journal cards to the 3x4 size. One of the things I wanted to show you today as I'm talking about micro stories is just how to take a 4x6 journaling card and turn it into a 3x4 journaling card. As you saw in my video up to this point, I'm definitely liking the 3x4 size. it's nice to have 4x6 too, but sometimes just the 3x4 is more of what you want. The first thing we're going to do is go to image size up here, and I'm just going to put in 3 inches because that's the width that I want, and it's going to constrain the proportion so that it's 2 inches high. The next thing I'm going to do is come over here, double click on the background, which will make this more editable than it was previously. Then I'm going to go up to image canvas size, and I'm going to make it 4 inches tall. I'm going to fix the relative part here so that the blank part will be on the bottom. You see how that is? And then what I'm going to do next is I am simply going to take the clone tool. Let's come back out of that a little bit. The clone tool, which, let me grab that, is right here, the clone stamp tool. And I am simply, you can actually make this a little bit bigger if you want to. I am going to click on here. I'm going to hold down the Option key on a Mac, and I'm going to click, and then I can come down here and I can actually just paint this in. So anytime we have some sort of a simple background, whether it's something that has a little bit of a texture like this one, or if it was just a color, you can go ahead and create, make it bigger on the bottom so that it can have space for your journaling. In this case, I'm actually going to copy and paste journaling from an Instagram post. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go to Instagram on my desktop. I'm going to click right here. And this is the one that I wanted to add in to my journaling. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste that, selecting it, hitting copy and then paste. And then I'm going to come back here, I'm going to grab the text tool, create a text box there, and then paste in what I wanted to add in. And I think in this case, I'm going to do something like this since I have a little bit of space here. Let's see, I can kind of keep all of those in. This is 10 point, and I think actually 9 point would be just fine also. Kind of depends on your personal preference there. I'm going to adjust just a little bit to get it lined up with the other. And then I'm also going to adjust the distance between each one. Let's see if we can, I don't really want it to be that far. I'm not sure why. Let's see if I can copy. See, sometimes you can just copy and paste that little space there. So I'm going to try doing that. Okay, that's simply what I did. I copied and pasted the distance here, that space, and then I was able to paste that back in here. But something else I want to do is actually adjust the space between the paragraphs. And so I'm going to put in, let's put 2 in and see what that does. That's not enough, so let's put in like 8. And see what it's doing is it's leaving space where all of the hard returns are. So that can help you to make that consistent in a journaling space like this. Okay. I'm also going to go here and I'm going to do a hard return, which is where I hold down Shift and then hit return so that it I didn't have that other, the hyphen between the words there. Okay, and I'm going to actually take the periods off here because I think this one is just fine. I'll probably stamp the date stamp on there, and then I'm just going to go ahead after I print it out, and I'm just going to print it. I could also print this at the same time as I printed a photo by making the canvas 4x6, but I had already printed that out. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit print, and then I'll show you what that looks like at my table. You can see that card up in the top right corner, and I'm going to stamp directly on it. One of the things that you might have heard me say in that recorded video was talking about micro stories. And to me, what a micro story is essentially something I would post on Instagram, right? Like, here's a picture of Anna and one of her friends, and here's a little story about them. Like, that would, to me, is a micro story. And when I take the time to post something like that on Instagram, what I am wanting to get myself in the habit of doing is coming over to my computer and printing out a 3x4 card or 3x4 picture, and then printing out the 3x4 journaling as well, or doing it on handwriting it on a journal card. That could happen as well. What I just did is I punched holes into one of the 6x8 pattern papers that was included in the March Stories by the Month kit. And my plan on there, as you're going to see in a couple minutes here, is I'm just going to go ahead and write write down 7 different details from the month corresponding to some of those photos that I added into the pockets. Now you can see that I'm pulling them in and out of the pockets. I've done it a couple of times here because I'm still kind of figuring out how do I want these to flow in the album. This album, the 6x8 album, is flowing chronologically, essentially from the beginning of the year. There might be a couple things that happen out of chronological order, but essentially starting at the beginning of the year and then moving forward through the year itself. So I am looking for opportunities to add in the pocket pages intermixed with the stories that I'm telling in the story kit. So that's kind of my overall approach. You'll see here that some of these stories I told earlier in the month, and I really liked that process of having this out on my table as something that I know that I want to fill in, and then I can come to it at the end of the month like I did this month and fill in the remaining stories, or print out 10 more photos, or write up a couple more journaling cards. Just keeping it really light, keeping it loose and light, I guess is the word, or the words that I would use to describe that. One thing that I am really loving with this simple approach is that I can do a combination of typed and handwritten journaling. So sometimes I'm just grabbing a journal card, writing by hand, or I'm grabbing one of these prompt pages like this and I'm just writing by hand directly on there. I also decided to grab an alpha stamp here. I'm using the M for March, and I'm going to stamp it right up in that top little half circle there. It's only going to be part of it, but you'll still be able to tell that it is an M for March. And I thought that was a fun way to add a little graphic element on there. So the stories that I'm telling directly on here are coming from those 4 photos, at least initially. So I've got a photo of Isaac's birthday, a photo of art journaling that I've been doing, Elliot got a car this past month, and the daffodils. So those are the first 4 stories that I'm just briefly describing over there inside those circles. I'm using a brush pen for my titles, and then I'm using a pen. Let's see, what is that the pen is a Uniball Vision Elite pen for the actual journaling on there, and then I'm just underlining. So like I said a couple minutes ago, light and loose is kind of what I'm looking for. I loved that I took, a couple hours yesterday to print out the second half of the month, whatever number of photos, maybe it was like 10, 15 photos, did a couple journaling cards that some of them were copied and pasted from Instagram, and some of them I just wrote up, like, a little story about what Anna was doing for spring break, and then adding those in there. Another thing that I'm doing at this point in time, when I did this the other day, in addition to the journaling that I'm writing down on there, is that you're going to see me go in and adhere my pages back to back. So the pages that I made for the Make Story Kit are getting adhered back to back, and then everything in the album kind of flows together. So some of the things are outside of the page protectors, some of the things are inside of the page protectors, and I love the combination. Like, that just seems like it's working really well for me right now. And I'm in a season for myself where I'm feeling really creative, and I'm doing all kinds of different projects, which I love, and I'm really excited to be feeling that way again. And so it's fun to be able to have different ways that I'm doing things. So some things are, really simple like this. I'm getting to be messy in the art journal. I'm getting to be outside and plant my flowers, and then I can tell little stories about that as well. So there you see I'm adhering those pages back to back. These are a couple of the ones that I made with the Make Story Kit, which was the kit that got released in March. And so I'm just the stories that I told there were still relevant to this time period. You can see that I've got a blank page there, and I'm going to rectify that in just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and print another larger photo that I'm going to add in there, a photo from the garden. I'm also going to start off April, and I'm using the transparency or vellum pieces from the Stories by the Month kit just as a monthly divider. I'm not putting anything on top of them yet, but I'm using them simply as a placeholder, right? That, it's going into the next month. At least that's kind of where I'm setting them right now. I might end up adding stories on top of them. I don't know that I did that for February, so I'm going to need to go back in there. I also went ahead and took the opportunity to pull out the March 3 Things card. These are included in the Stories by the Month kit each month, and I'm pulling the April one out so that I will have that in there and ready. And then I am going to just fill out 3 things for March, or 3 memories, kind of like 3 highlights. So it'll be like Isaac's birthday and spring break, and I think I'd write something on there about feeling really creative and how that's been such a fun thing to feel. Like, really and truly, it's been a while since I felt like that and felt like I wanted to make stuff and felt like I wanted to share what I was doing and, you know, do art journaling stuff, with just frees my head up in a whole different space. So being able to document some of that in a way that looks different than I've done it in past years, that feels easy in a way that, like, I'm really welcoming that ease. Yeah, it's just a little bit about where where I'm at right now. In the middle of doing all kinds of projects and all the other thing, it's nice to have this part, I think, feel like there is some ease in it. So yeah, like I said at the beginning of this video, this is all about being in the season that you are in, right? And maybe you are in a different season, and we don't have to compare, we don't have to compete, we just get to cheer each other on in our memory keeping adventures. So here's another 7 by 8¼ photo that I printed out because I had the back of one of those make projects open. So I decided to just grab another photo that I had taken over the course of this last month, because again, I'm not printing out every single photo that I took in March. I'm just picking some that can capture some of the stories from this past month. Never do I have the intention that I'm going to capture every single story. So I'm adhering the photo of me working out in the yard to the back of the Making Stuff Looks Like This page that I did there. I'm going to punch some holes. And yes, I do cut right into my wood table there. I've been doing that for a number of years. It's another project simplifier. Anyway, I got that added in there, and then I'm going to move some of the things around in the pockets because I found that I could have the journaling card that I had done about working out in the yard and some of those additional 3x4 photos of working in the yard, that I could have that be all together. So it's essentially like a spread. And it's really words and photos, right? Not a lot of embellishing happening in this particular project, in this particular documenting piece. And that's working really good for me right now. All right, as always, let me know if you have questions. Mainly, I just wanted you to see a really simple way that you can be adding words and photos into a 6x8 album, regardless of the other projects that you may be embarking on. I'll see you guys back here again soon.